Someone has stepped across the threshold this evening as our newest house guest. They're crossing over from the normal world into our haunted house. Welcome to the Looks Creepy Cool podcast, part of Haunted House FearFest. I'm your host, Renee, and tonight I'm joined by filmmaker Max Kaplan, director of the horror short Looker, nominated for Best Horror Short at the 2025 Haunted House FearFest. In Looker, a young woman named Anna discovers she is cursed to melt away when she is not being perceived, forcing her to go to greater and greater lengths to be seen with terrifying consequences. Now, guys, together, Max and I will wander room by room through the haunted house and uncover what makes this film so creepy cool. Let's step inside. Hi, Max. How are you?
Hi, Renee. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course. This is amazing. And, this is a new format for the podcast, but all my regulars know what it's all about. And basically, we're going to start off in different rooms in the house. I like to call my audience the watchers of the house. So we're going to first start off in the creepy kitchen, where you tell us about your ingredient of fear, the library of shadows, what inspired our house guests, the mirror room, reflect on his horror origin story, the basement stairs, where he'll reveal industry secrets or lessons, the attic call, which talks about what's pulling him forward, and the final room, where he'll share the most creepiest moment and the most coolest moment. But Max, it really depends the answers to your questions because you might not make it through every room. So we're just going to see how it goes. So I'm just going to kick this off. When I saw Looker, I just want to know, what was the moment on set that made you go, damn, this is actually going to disturb people?
There's a scene in the second half. The movie kind of takes place in two parts. It's like out and having fun, and then kind of as she lands at the DJ's house, and that's where the rest of it takes place. And the DJ kind of brings her home because there's nobody, her friend leaves her at this after party. She needs somebody to look at her. This dude's paying attention to her, and she can't kind of be alone, so she's got to go with him. And there's this moment before he even chains her up in his bedroom, his like sex dungeon, where he just like kind of puts his hand on her legs and is like, trying to make a move, and she immediately shuts him down. But it was when I was on set directing that moment, I got like chills watching the monitor while he was like being all creepy with her. We did a couple different angles, couple different ways. But I was like, this isn't even like the horror aspect of the movie, but it's freaking me out. Like it's great. It's creepy and gross.
So how was the actress that played on set? Like, how was she during the whole process? Was this her first film or?
So she's actually really big. Her name's Christine K. Larson.
Mhm.
I knew her from high school, and she wasn't an actress then, but afterwards she moved to LA and
Mhm.
became an actress. And she's really huge in the vertical shorts world now.
Okay.
She's in all kinds, she's constantly on set, constantly working on those. So that's kind of the world she comes from, but she's highly
Okay.
trained, highly classically trained, and very, very easy to work with. I mean, I don't know if it's just from knowing each other when we were younger, but we immediately had this kind of shorthand where I really didn't even have to have discussions with her about the character or the scene. She just knew what to do. She was often like a one and done type, actress for the takes. She would immediately do what I wanted, or if she could tell I wasn't happy, would direction wasn't even needed. She just was able to
Uh-huh.
she was like, oh, he's disappointed in something or he's not liking something. Let me change it up to something he'll like. And it was like by the second take, we were great. So she was awesome to work with.
Wow, that is someone who really knows her craft. That's impressive, and that's very rare to have on set.
Yeah, no, there was
Yeah.
moments where I was kind of like, because this was a student film. So,
Yeah.
you're constantly kind of monitoring people because especially this film, it was half students, half professionals. So I'm kind of always wanting people to stay on top of things, be professional, and be ready for anything. And there was moments where she'd be like, it was kind of cold some days, so she'd
Mhm.
be in a hoodie, and I'd be like, hey, can you, be ready to get in costume? We're going to be up in 30 seconds. And she'd be like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine, I'm just staying warm until the camera's rolling. And I'm like, okay. And she would literally just rip it off and then be that character. I was like, don't you need like time to prepare, like get into it? But no, like as soon as the camera was on and she was in front of it, her whole demeanor changed. She was in the scene, she was in the moment as the character, like literally instantly.
Wow. So when I was watching the film, I was like, okay, I see her, I get it. But then parts of her creepiness just like etches out like slowly as you like go through the film and you start to unravel to see what happens. So, like, we're in the creepy kitchen. So, if fear was an ingredient in your film's recipe, what was the dominant flavor? Was it desperation, obsession, or visibility? Like, how would you describe that fear, especially with her?
For me, I love an existential crisis, like
Mm,
things that horror movies that give you an existential crisis or just kind of yeah, things of that nature where you're like, "Wait, I am here. Why? How do I survive?" You know, like the very, very basics of human life and existence, literally. And so when I was writing this, I wanted to make it about perception. At first, it was kind of if I can take you literally behind the scenes into the my little writing kitchen, it started out as the director was a character, and he was kind of imagining these characters, and it would kind of be the beginning of the story, and then suddenly it would stop, and he'd be like, "No, no, 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 no," and he would like cross out the words on the page, and then you realize that these characters are dependent on the director's imagination, so that they
mm,
then have to like interact with the director to stay alive and stay existing. And I thought that
wow.
was a little too meta. So I decided to go with this idea of an imaginary friend that becomes real and then has to kind of like Pinocchio, like kind of
Hmm.
survive from there by continuing to exist in the real world by being seen. And that was kind of closer to what I wanted thematically, but it was still a little too abstract for my liking. I mean, the movie's surreal and abstract in certain ways, but it also has a storyline you can follow, even if there's certain things that aren't explained, like why she's melting. But what we ended up landing on, me and my co-writer, was the final story that you see, where there's not a lot explained. You don't know if she's real, if it's all in her head, if she's imaginary or not. I like that ambiguity where we don't explain to the audience. You're left grasping for straws, but also just forced to witness the experience because it's a short film. Like you can't explain much. You just got to go show the audience the experience and let them be afraid.
Yeah, no, you definitely accomplished that. So, one thing I want to, just because of the metaphors like in the film and like being invisible or not being seen, that's such a strong metaphor for being ignored or erased. Sorry, my cat just was there was there a personal moment or emotion tied to this?
Yeah, so actually, I remembered my mom telling me that when I was a baby and she would leave me alone in a room, I would just cry and cry and cry until she came back. And I was thinking about it and I realized that I don't think a baby has the mental capacity to understand that it's not the mom that's like possibly not existing because she's not there looking at you. It's like your existence is tied to looking at your mother. And so a baby might think that they have stopped existing when the mom leaves them alone. I think that's a
Wow.
pretty universal feeling among babies, like no baby likes to be left alone. So I was thinking about like those primal aspects of like wanting to be seen by somebody that loves you. And that was kind of one of the main inspirations of the story where it started.
Wow, it all started with the childhood. That's
Yeah.
what always happens. You
Really
know,
childhood.
Well, so when you look in the mirror, like now that the film's done, any truth about yourself that you were sorry, my cat, do you see reflected? Her name's Betty Davis, by the way. So if you don't
Oh.
know, Betty Davis is like the greatest actress of all time, and sometimes she likes making a cameo. So, but sorry, when you look in the mirror now that the film's done, like, was there any truth about yourself? Like, do you see reflected in the film in a way? Like, I know we talked about how the story came about, but now like you finish the film, like you're like, wow, like when's my next film? So what do you see in yourself now compared to when you first started the film?
I mean, I see myself as a capable horror director. This was only my second
Mhm.
horror film. I
Wow.
came to horror late in life because my mom was very religious and didn't allow me to watch horror movies till I was like 17 to 18. And then
Yeah.
I saw a bunch and I loved so many like the 70s and 80s spaghetti horrors like Lucio Fulci movies like The Beyond and Zombie
Yeah.
and um, Dario Argento
Mm.
Suspiria, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Those kind of older films really inspired me. And my first horror film was called Death of a Bible Salesman, which actually just came
Oh.
out on YouTube yesterday.
Mm.
And that was much more personal because it was about my religious trauma, kind of growing up in a very religious household and then being
Mm.
actually a Catholic missionary for a year before I decided to go to film school. And it was something I wrote as an interrogation of that loss of faith and that time in my life. And so that was like my personal movie. And I've been very insecure about it. It's actually been almost 3 years since I made it. And it's just now coming out because I was like, you know what? People need to see it. I finally feel like okay personally with it being out there. But
Yeah.
Looker was much more of a experiment, less of a personal exploration. I wanted
Okay.
to do a monster movie, a body horror movie that was not what those things traditionally are. Like I was inspired by Cronenberg to do body horror and use metaphors
Oh.
for the themes like of the body horror. So like, melting, perception, needing to be seen, attention, those kinds of things. And it was much less of a personal project, if that makes any sense, and more of a professional commercial experiment. And it's done so well. This is our 28th or ninth festival, and
Wow.
the success has been off. I mean, so much more successful than I would have ever imagined. Um, and so my screenwriting professor, who actually helped me on the movie, she goes, "All right, so now you need to write a feature of it because it's going to all these festivals, you're meeting all these people, you're winning awards, and people want to see more." And I'm like, I never thought about that. So now I'm thinking about how to turn this into.
Yeah, I think you should because when I was watching it, I was like, "Man, I wish this was a feature." Like, I was good it was good great to it would have been great to know even more of her background story and everything else and what happened. Yeah. So, I totally agree. That's what you have to do next. So next, like, that really brings me down to the basement. And, you talked, a lot about, like, the elements of the film and everything else, but the physical transformation, like the melting, is
Mhm.
such a bold visual. I mean, even though what happens to the guy at the end. So what was the hardest part of bringing that effect to life in a way?
So with every production I do, I try and level up in some way, give myself
Mhm.
a challenge of something I haven't done before. And for this one, what was required for the story was VFX, and I've never worked
Mm.
with a VFX team before. I was really thankful to find a company up in Cleveland that are also Ohio University graduates, which is where I did this as my thesis. They're called Pixel Planet. And they
Wow.
walked me through with our DP. We did camera tests, VFX tests, and they made sure that we knew exactly what it was going to take to get the right melting effect.
Wow.
And working with them was really I was afraid because I'm not very technically minded. I don't know about all the specs and the
Yeah.
codecs, the gobbledygook on the
Yeah.
computer. But they really broke it down for us, made sure that we had kind of a set to-do list every day when we get shots that we're gonna be having her melt in it.
Mm.
And we got everything we needed. There was only a couple of things we needed to reshoot, and they were all from the practical effects. They weren't from the VFX. So working with the VFX team was really fun and a great challenge, and I'm glad that it turned out, but it was one of the biggest challenges of this production simply because I'd never worked with VFX before.
So how long did it take you to complete the film?
About a year
Oh,
from first draft
wow.
to final cut. It was about, yeah, September to August, so 11 months.
Wow. So from the script, like it does mix like the film does mix like a lot of horror, like with psychological tension. And was there a moment where the story almost went in a different direction?
Yeah, I mean, it was way like when the draft of the script was she's an imaginary friend that
Yeah.
is kind of conjured, and then once she realizes she's actually real, she has to stay in people's sight to stay in people's minds, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was a much more abstract version, and that was where we were really kind of leaning towards up until a couple of months before production, and we decided to write the version that you see on the final screen. But
Mhm.
I don't like, for instance, the opening scene was her becoming real. And like
Yeah.
that was going to be a totally, in a void space. She was going to melt into existence in front of all of the characters who were like, in this space. And it was going to be much more David Lynch esque.
Mm.
But I think it still is. I mean, people have told me that it's like kind of surreal in some ways, like Lynch movies. But yeah, it's less surreal than it was originally intended.
Wow. So, what's also crazy is I like to call our lightning round because you are in the basement and we have to get you to the next room. And so, this I asked you just a question and you have to answer with just one word. So, are you ready? Found footage or cinematic stylization?
Cinematic stylization,
Practical effects or digital effects?
practical effects,
Horror should hurt or horror should haunt?
mm, haunt,
So the holidays are approaching. What's on the dinner menu? Is it eyeballs or is it brains?
eyeballs.
And if you can invite one person to your holiday dinner, who would it be? Your only guest from anywhere, from the dead or from the living?
This is so pretentious, but Orson Welles.
That's a nice one.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think he was probably one of the coolest of the movie maker characters of like the old days, like
Mhm.
he had a troubled career after his first movie, which is, Citizen Kane, considered the best movie ever made. And I just think he was probably a really interesting person to spend time with and talk to as a professional, but also just as a person.
Wow. All right. Okay. Well, Max, you are now at our final door. And so, two questions I need to ask that we always ask our house guests. What is the creepiest thing that's happened to you? And what is the coolest thing that's ever happened to you?
Thing I've had some really strange things happen to me in my life. I have some ghost stories, but I also have some like real like peril, like danger stories. So I'll do the perilous, dangerous story where I think I almost died.
Okay.
I was driving home late at night in I forget where I was coming from, where I was going, but it was like these back country roads in Ohio that I'd never
Okay.
been on before. And I was driving up a hill and there was a truck coming down and he flashed his brights at me. And I was like, we're in the middle of nowhere. There's no cops here. He's not warning me about a cop, I bet. But I slowed down anyways because I was like, huh, weird. And then as I get above, crest the hill, there's a car parked with its flashers on the side. And there's a dude waving at me for help. And I was like super tired. It was super late. I was
Mm.
like, I don't think I want to be a good Samaritan today. And I wasn't even thinking about the fact that the truck just flashed me. So I drive by kind of feeling bad. I'm like, "Oh, poor guy. Somebody else will have to get him." And then
Yeah.
as soon as I kind of, that's at the top of the hill. As I start going down the hill, there was a dude in a truck ready to back up into the road, perpendicular. Like if I would have stopped, he was gonna pull out and trap me so that I wouldn't be able to drive away. And I don't know if they were trying to steal my car, if they were trying to rob me, if they were like, what could have happened. But
Mm.
that truck warned me. And I think that's like, honestly, kind of just subconsciously, I was like, all right, just keep driving. Like something weird's going on. And yeah, I feel like if I would have stopped for that guy, I would have been in a lot of trouble.
Oh my God. That was a setup.
I think so.
See, but you know what? You learn from horror movies. So thank God you were just like tired because if you weren't, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, don't stop for anyone.
Don't stop for anyone. Yeah, you wish you could say otherwise, but you don't know who's out there, what they're trying to do. But
Wow.
coolest story,
Mhm.
I've also had a lot of cool things happen to me. The one that's coming to mind though is when I was 7, my
Mm.
parents took me. Yeah, I think I was 7 or 8. My parents took me to Cape Canaveral to see a shuttle launch,
Hmm.
and
Nice.
it happened to be the 40th anniversary of Star Wars coming out, or 30th or something. And so
Oh.
George Lucas was there to send up the original lightsaber prop that they were going to release into space when the shuttle went up or something like that.
That is so
And
cool.
when I was 7 years old, I got to meet him in like the cafeteria. When we were on our tour, we were like on the same bus, I guess. And my dad, he's like, "Hey, Max, George Lucas is over there." And I was like, "Who is that?" And he's like, "Star Wars." I'm like, "No way." And I remember just wanting to say, "Hey, will you make more Star Wars movies?" I can't remember if I did or not, but I'm pretty sure my dad was like, "Don't, everybody says that. Like, don't say that." And
That is so cool.
yeah, and then the shuttle launch was really cool, but it wasn't until the next year or maybe my birthday after that that my dad got me Lucas's biography. And so when I was 8 or 9, I read
Wow.
Lucas's biography, and that's what made me believe I could be a filmmaker.
Wow,
So
that's
it's kind of a little
amazing.
filmmaking origin story along with one of the coolest things that's happened to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Max, as we close out the podcast, and you survived the haunted house, like, what's next? I mean, I know you talked about doing a feature, but do you have any other type of, I guess, haunted discoveries or maybe some cool horror like scripts that you're going to dust off and start doing?
Yeah, I've got a couple shorts that are in development to be probably made next year. One of them is probably my favorite script I've ever written.
Mhm.
I made it with my best friend, Christian, who we used to write movies together in high school. That we kind of came up together. And we decided to write it earlier at the beginning of this year. We weren't working. None of our freelance friends were working. It's just like some residual kind of lack of work from the strikes and stuff, I think. And so we were like, let's just make something to make with our friends while and stay sharp, use our gear, use our time to make something cool. And it was called The Pilgrimage. It's a medieval horror movie. And it's like very, very fantasy. Again, even more surreal than Looker. Like I'm really leaning hard into that. And the production, unfortunately, just kind of fell apart due to scheduling. Like, thankfully, we all
Mm,
got busy. We've all been working on movies and stuff throughout the year. So it's something that's been rescheduled to next year. And I'm really hoping to be able to submit that to festivals by spooky season of next year. And then, yeah, in terms of features, I am just starting to develop Looker into a feature idea. That's just in the outlining phases now. But I do have a coming of age feature film that I'm trying to make in Ohio next summer. And that'll be my first
wow.
feature. And it's just kind of to test the waters, to prove to myself that I can do it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully if that does well, then I'll be able to do my kind of higher budget horror concepts, of which I have a few.
Wow, man, I'm so impressed. I love how like your horror mind is working. Like I feel like you just wake up and have an idea and then you just like or is it or no, it's not the case.
It's
That's
a
not
it's
the
a
case.
burden. It's a blessing and a burden at the same time because every day I'm like, man, I got this new idea that I have to spend 3 months writing.
Man, well, it's a blessing for us because like Looker is such an amazing film. I'm so glad you're getting so much success, not just at this festival, but other festivals too.
Thank
Keep
you.
on creating, keep on shining, keep on making horror. Like we love it. And guys, that is a wrap. This is the Creepy Cool podcast, part of Haunted House Fear Fest. The festival is open all year round. We want to thank Max for coming on as a guest. He survived and hope he comes on to many more times on the podcast. So, and remember, guys, if it looks creepy, it must be cool. Follow the fear. The house is waiting. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Want more chills and chatter? We're streaming on all podcast platforms.